Today on Locked On Rockies, we take another look at spring training as not all, but most of the starters we think played yesterday in a pretty good ball game.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 5th day of March in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day. Free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Just head on over there, click that subscribe button, fire off your hot takes, and you'll be part of the show, just like so many of you folks have been over the past couple of days. And we'll keep rocking and rolling there as we go to our YouTube comments section to close out the show, as we often do. Before we dive into all of the good stuff today, including taking a look at yesterday's spring training game that featured quite a bit of Rockies starters and a nice little small fun nugget story that Purple Row was brought up as well. The Rockies commercials are back, and you're like, is that worth topic? Is that worth talking time? Of course, multiple little angles to look at this, and I'll explain why coming up here in just a little bit as well. But in case you are new to the show, in case you don't know, I'm Paul Holden, your Rockies fan extraordinaire. Been bringing you this daily Rockies podcast for over 3 seasons now, and been a diehard Colorado Rockies fan my entire life. So if you like the show, if you like being part of the show, head on over to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, subscribe, be part of the show. I'm a Rockies fan. You're a Rockies fan. Let's talk rocks, and let's talk about yesterday's game. My big thing that I noticed yesterday about the lineup yesterday, it wasn't all of my anticipated starters for the year, or for the year, the opening day, but it certainly was close. Brenton Doyle starts. Ryan McMahon starts. Ezekiel Tovar starts. Chris Bryant starts. Estrada starts. Nolan Jones starts. Stallings starts. I believe he started. Yes. I got confused because Nola got a couple of at-bats. And then basically, opens up that possibility for right field there with Zach Veen, Benny Montgomery being the other right fielder playing in that game yesterday. And what was a good sign about yesterday, was every starter had an impact in the game yesterday. Some more than others. Brenton Doyle hitting a long ball, of course, driving in that. Ryan McMahon, a couple of RBI in that game. Chris Bryant, not scoring any runs, picks up a hit, though. Productive. Getting a hit's always, it's at least something there. 1 for 4, unfortunately, overall on the day. But got a hit and scored there. Productive. Estrada, a couple of hits and an RBI. Nolan Jones, a couple of hits. No RBI, but does score there as well. And again, Jacob Stallings picks up a base knock and an RBI. And then finally, Zach Veen, picks up another hit there for the Rockies. Another good sign too. A couple of walks, not a ton of walks, but during the game, the Rockies did draw. Was that 1, 2, 3, 4 walks? 4 walks from Rockies batting there in this game. Unfortunately, the strikeout bug still kind of a problem. But this is, again, I'm not super familiar with the Reds roster, so I don't necessarily know if I don't know exactly how much this was a matchup of starters versus starters. For example, I'm just doing a quick scan through of the Reds lineup. I'm not seeing the Ellie De La Cruz name that you're used to. So, of course, a little bit of a grain of salt there, but the right guys doing the right things. And that's the type of games we need to start seeing. These are the type of games that we'll be encouraged by if we start seeing throughout the rest of the spring from these specific guys. Of course, we want to pay attention and see what Benny Montgomery is doing and what, Amador's doing when these guys come up and get some opportunities in these games. But the main focus, the big deal, the big deal is, of course, kind of the starters as well. It's how good is Chris Bryant really feeling now, as we're going to be getting What is kind of a good sign, I think, for Chris Bryant, for example, is if they ramp up the playing time, or however much playing time he gets in the spring, I think he's going to be able to get a good idea of just where his back and how healthy he truly is feeling. I think, this is a situation in which the longer spring training is a benefit, of course, not only for a lot of guys getting going, but I think for Chris Bryant to get kind of a good understanding and a good idea of where he's feeling in terms of his health and the strength of his back. So again, obviously it wasn't a dominant day, but a base knock and a run scored is always a good sign. The Rockies, and like I said, this could have been a matchup against all of lower level players for the Reds. I'm sorry, I don't have a encyclopedia knowledge of the Reds and their entire team and system, so it's hard to compare. But even if it is lower level guys or whatever, then the guys stepped up and handled business against the lower level talent. They weren't blown away or dominated by any stretch of the imagination by lower level talent. They were able to get up and do business and do it early. The Rockies jumped out ahead early, 5 runs in the second inning, jumping all over it, setting the tone for this game and adding on throughout the game as well. It got a little, couple of bumpy moments here and there for the Rockies on the defensive side, but when you jump out ahead early like that and keep adding on, which sometimes I feel like we don't always see the Rockies do, that's a good sign. Still plenty of things up in the air, plenty of things that are possible, but when you're looking at a successful day of spring training, that's a successful day of spring training for the guys. I mean, again, all of the starters that we expect for this team contributing in one way or another here to the Rockies in the lineup. The Rockies, another day of scoring another day of a big run, big runs on the scoreboard, of driving runs in here. The Rockies now have only scored have scored 2 or fewer runs this spring training only 3 times. That's out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the Rockies have now plated more than 2 runs 10 times in spring training. It's spring training, obviously, but that's a good sign. Actually, it might be 4. I'm sorry, 9 times. I might have missed this Dodgers one here. I can't remember, but 9 to 10 times the Rockies have now scored upwards of 2 runs, which is, and again, that's with mixing in the young guys. That's with a lot of changes in the lineups. Yesterday, for example, when you're looking for guys that we aren't counting as starters to contribute there, there was some there. Ariel Amador picks up a couple of runs off of doesn't get a hit but gets a walk, gets on base, and is able to score twice there. Kyle Farmer able to contribute for the Rockies there. That's going to be an interesting thing as he tries to figure out who is going to be the bench player for the Rockies, who is going to be that veteran piece that they are going to have on the team. Sterling Thompson comes up and gets on the board there with an RBI. Really good things to see. I think the one, I think if you're looking for the thing that kind of is your reminder yesterday, the 2 names that a lot of people have been talking about, especially, I know this channel has, of Zach Agnos. Agnos and Halverson both getting dinged up a little bit for some runs there. However, crooked numbers on the strikeouts in their innings pitched. I mean, this is as much as it's as much as you don't want to see the 2 runs, 2 hits given up for Agnos. 2 strikeouts also always great. Every single Rockies pitcher that pitched yesterday picking up at least 1 strikeout in their work. Bradley Blaylock getting 2 strikeouts in 3 innings worth of work. Jake Woodford getting 1 in 2 innings worth of work. Agnos getting the 2. Kinley picking up a strikeout there. A couple of walks there, 3 walks given up by the Rockies bullpen yesterday. But again, not the worst thing in the world. And Chavihi again picking up with 3 strikeouts, and Halverson 3 strikeouts right there. Those guys, I mean, if those 2 guys now with another spot open in the bullpen there with Justin Lawrence being claimed by the Pirates, those young guys, those are the type of performances that's going to just keep building your confidence in there and Chavihi there. I'm starting to get a little bit more. I'm just getting a little more excited by what he brings to the team. I really think that the strikeout possibility is pretty great here. Let's see. 7 strikeouts for Angel in 4 innings pitched here so far, giving up 1 home run, 1 walk. 3 earned so far. But to go 7 strikeouts in 4 innings, loving that. Let's see the strikeout per 9. If it was to if it was to be at that rate, continuing, that's a 15.8 strikeout per 9 there on that. In using those spring training numbers here from Baseball Reference. I know way there, but that's the type of stuff that I like to see. That's the stuff that is encouraging for me here. And again, I think it's not always going to be pretty, I think, with how young the Rockies bullpen will be this year. I think that's just going to be because we got guys that are, carving their way into the major leagues, getting maybe some of their first experience, getting their first follow-up experience since last year. But I do believe that the tools and the talent that the Rockies players have in this bullpen will be better than blowing 5-run leads late in games. The biggest thing that we just need guys to hit their spots. And that's something I'm going to continuously watch throughout the spring and continuously watch throughout the season. It will be the strikeout to walk ratio for the Rockies. I know the ground ball and the defense, huge part of what the Rockies do. But if the Rockies are able to be a better team at striking batters out, which I think they will be this year, given the difference in talent that they have, both in the starters and in the bullpen, the talent and skill sets. I think skill set is probably a better word to use there. I do think the Rockies, they're not going to be a league leader. They're not going to be a dominant strikeout team. But I do think the strikeout is going to be more of a weapon for the Rockies this year. But it doesn't matter if control and walks are going to be a problem. So I think that's the thing that I'm going to keep watching here over the spring is how are our guys looking when it comes to their walks? How are we looking here when it comes to hitting that zone and getting the job done there, so we'll see. But that's just kind of where I think yesterday is one of those spring days where you can see a little bit more of how the Rockies can be successful this season. And again, your definition of, as we have done a whole episode about, your definition of successful this year is subjective. Because my definition different than your definition. But overall, I think the team has the potential to be better. But it's a lot of relying on breakouts too. You know what I mean? It's a lot of relying on the Rockies being successful at this part of the game right now, at this right here of getting young guys major league ready, getting them prepared to be able to handle it, and being able to adjust throughout the season. That'll obviously, that's a wait and see type of thing, but I'm just saying I do as much when I see games like yesterday, and I know, again, it's a spring training game, but I see the seeds of why I don't think this team is as bad as projected. You can definitely understand why it's as bad as projected too. I mean, as long as you're sitting there, thinking, as long as you're keeping a level head, you easily can see why people are so down on the Rockies. But again, I just think that it's being missed that the level of talent of the Rockies is not worse than baseball. I think that I think the improved farm system over the last, not long time, but smaller time. I think some of the moves, I think some of the development of Brenton Doyle specifically, like I'm just not able to look, and it's the homer hat, I know, but I just can't see this team as being worse than last year's. I just don't think that. I don't think the energy is the same. I don't think the vibes are the same. I don't think the mentalities are the same. And the health certainly isn't the same. The roster isn't the same either, of course, with some major changes. But that's the type of stuff when the Rockies players are rolling, when the Rockies players are in a good groove, they can beat the starters of the Rockies can beat the starters of the Reds. And I know that might not have been the case yesterday. but I believe the starters of the Rockies can beat the starters of the Reds in a ball game. 7-game series, probably not the case. But 3-game series in the middle of July, shake up the NL, shake up the Central a bit. I certainly think the Rockies can do that. And when we see games where the starters contribute, like the way they did yesterday, Doyle hitting a bomb, McMahon hitting RBI doubles, that type of stuff will be the recipe for success for the Colorado Rockies. All right, let's talk about something fun here coming up in segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked on Rockies. We'll do that coming up next. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes wonderful pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, you can crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Maybe you don't want to make a big mess with all the shells. Maybe you're at your desk and you're just sitting there and you're like, it's a whole hassle to crack them open and eat them. Well, guess what? They got the no shells variety. It's perfect for grab and go snacking on busy days at your desk, on a road trip, or if you just need a quick protein boost. And of course, if you want to have the good feeling, the ASMR of cracking those shells open, you got the classic ones available for you as well. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. This is the Locked on Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked on Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Shout out to all our everydayers out there and all you folks for tuning in and joining us here. We got lots of comments to get through here because we got lots of takes about who is going to be the home run leader for the Colorado Rockies this season. So stay tuned for that coming up in segment number 3 of today's episode. But before we do that, wanted to bring up a little storyline here and this headline from Purple Row and Renee Deckhart. Rockies commercials are back. Here's how it happens. According to Tracy Abia, Rockies Director, Marketing and Advertising, the organization decided it was time to bring back the genre. We know how much our fans love that style of Rockies commercial and figured now was a perfect time to revive them. We have an exciting roster full of amazing players and personalities, and these commercials really allow the guys to showcase their personalities and connect with the fan base. Even though the spots are short, the planning process has been extensive. First, we start off with brainstorming sessions and developing scripts. In some cases, we have specific players in mind. However, oftentimes we have a great idea. Then we think about which players make the most sense for that role. However, time was a factor for the earliest ads. We had to be very strategic since we were filming the day after Rockies Fest, she said. We have a tight window and need to be organized in order to get it done in one session. There's been 2 shared, Rocky Mountain Oysters and Love is Blind. So I haven't seen them yet, but it's Brett and Doyle, and it looks like Austin Gomber involving the Rocky Mountain Oysters here. And here's the behind the scenes. The best behind the scenes story is that Michael Toglia really didn't know what Rocky Mountain Oysters were until after he took the first bite. Oh, snap! Now that makes it really more of a want to watch. And of course, you're listening and you're saying, what the heck do I care about commercials for? It's commercials. I think these commercials do a really, really good job of building your relationship with the player in the sense of just recognizing them. I think why some players from the 07, the Rocktober, those teams, what helped their popularity, in addition to being successful on the field, was the commercials. Was when they were able to show off their personality a little bit more. You got to laugh. You got to see more. Todd Helton, prime example, right? I don't think a lot of people would sit there and think that Todd Helton's a funny guy unless you had those commercials. And then you just get a little bit more of the insight. You get to see who's kind of who are the actors, who are the ones that are really buying into it. As I've said in the episodes where we've talked about energy, I am a huge believer in personality. I'm a huge believer in what that does for a player and team. So when you have these opportunities for fans to get to know the players a little bit more, even through scripted, funny, silly stuff. But now you get to watch Michael Toglia. I don't know. Maybe it's crazy for me, but I think it helps build the relationship. It helps make you sit there and say, "Oh, I like that guy was funny on the commercial. I want to make sure I'm following what he's doing on the, what he's doing on the field the next day." I mean, Dexter Fowler, prime example, another guy that I think, got to really flourish when he was on the Rockies commercials. He got to be with Todd. They got to, go back and forth, mixed again with the legendary, the whole reason we have tacos. The whole reason why that Taco Bell sponsorship is so legendary, and I think why it still exists today, is because of the Carlos Gonzalez tacos commercial. I mean, there's the We Want Tacos commercial. Like, there's these commercials, and I know that was a Taco Bell one, but it still had the Rockies players kind of spin on it. It's just a cool way as you're trying to say, hey, Rockies fans, these are your guys. These are the next guys. Ezekiel Tovar is here to stay. Brenton Doyle, I mean, it could be possible, again, Brenton Doyle, a big part of this lineup, and we'll see who else keeps getting involved in these commercials. Austin, and it's great to see Austin Gomber getting in there now, being able to fully embrace being this Rockies, a member of this team. I think for him, it kind of signals that no matter what you say about the trade, it's all said and done. Gomber's been here and been contributing for the Rockies for the past few seasons. He is a Rocky. That weirdness of seeing, it's not weird to see Austin Gomber in a Rockies uniform anymore. So to have him be able to go up there, and if I am looking at the screenshot correctly here on this commercial, it's just cool to see. And again, maybe I'm just I don't know if I'm looking too in the weeds here. I just think that this is a small way for you to kind of just get a little bit more understanding of your team, of your favorite players, of who you're seeing out on the field every day. And it's totally scripted, and it's going to be fake and yada, yada, yada. I understand all that stuff. But I do believe that there's going to be a generation of Rockies fans that are going to watch this, watch these commercials and watch this team this season and kind of go through it with this team. And then if things start building up and panning out and the Rockies start, building some momentum or getting back in action, you're going to already have this helps you pick your favorite player. I know it's kind of crazy to say, but it's like, man, Brenton Doyle, not only is he winning back-to-back Gold Gloves, but he's hilarious in those commercials. He's the guy I'm going to be a big fan of this year. Just it's just a way to continue to get to know the guys on a team that I don't think a lot of people know. I think these Rockies commercials, if you just showed them and you show them at the sports bar, or if you showed them at home for the a good chunk of Colorado, I don't think people are going to recognize anybody outside of, in reality, I think there will be some households that don't recognize anybody. And it's not a slight. It's not me roasting those people. I'm just saying that is kind of the reality of the popularity of the Rockies, right? Of the star power of the Rockies. Chris Bryant hasn't been memorable enough in a Rockies uniform for his pre-Rocky stature to make him known by an average baseball a baseball fan, a casual baseball fan, a casual Rockies fan, for example. So, this is the chance for these guys to kind of, to help get a little bit more of a foothold with the fans there. So what do you think? Are you excited for the Rockies commercials to be back? Who are you hoping to see in some commercials? And boy, would it be fun if Todd Helton came back. Why? Just because he was so good in those commercials. I don't know what he would do, but if you give me Larry Walker and Todd Helton in a Rockies Hall of Famer commercial, sign me up. All right, let's read your comments here to wrap up the show. Coming up next on Locked On Rockies. Welcome back into Locked On Rockies. Paul Holden here, bringing you your third segment of Locked On Rockies, but that doesn't mean you should go anywhere, because this is usually the time of the show where we bring up your comments, your thoughts, your hot takes here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. And, of course, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go listen to our pal Sully. breaking down all things Major League Baseball for you. All right, lots of comments yesterday where we asked the question, who will be the Colorado Rockies home run leader in 2025? Let's see here. TK says, if Goodman can play every day, I believe he leads them. My other is Tolia. He follows up with, I believe the right thing for them to do is move on from these sweeper guys, because we talked about Justin Lawrence being claimed by the Pirates yesterday. At Coors, they should just stick to fastballs and power sinkers. I don't really, as much as there's probably reasons to avoid that, and we saw the sweeper stuff not work, I just don't believe in just saying, nah, that stuff ain't going to work at Coors. I kind of want to tweak and work, but I don't know if it's the sweeper as necessarily as much if it was the control issues that the problem. The sweeper's a good pitch. You just got to have it hit the spots. And when it was on for Lawrence and when he was at his best, he was virtually unhittable. But what's our big word on the podcast? Consistency. Soy Boy says, I think Tolia is going to lead in home runs, but hopefully Doyle, Tovar, and McMahon can also hit quite a few. Those are going to be the usual suspects, I think. And Jack says, good morning, Paul. After watching some spring ball, I think the over 60.5 wins should be a lock. I doubt it can be worse than last year. It's how I'm feeling too, but I don't know if I'm ready to call anything a lock with the Colorado Rockies quite yet. I am feeling a little more confident, and I am intrigued at what this first month of the season, especially with this kind of interesting schedule to start, that will impact that over under there. And I think I've seen it lower than 60.5. So that line is a little more kind to the Rockies, I think. Anthony says a big no on Bryant, and that was in response to another question on yesterday's pod of, will Chris Bryant hit, I believe it was 15 home runs? Anthony says, it is looking more and more like he is Anthony Rendon of the Rockies. It was a ridiculous contract from the moment they agreed to it. And, it's tough. At least, it really is. I don't know if I'm putting it in the Rendon thing just because, well, I mean, it's a big deal, that big star that signed and hasn't played. But I think we've seen Bryant a little bit more on the field, but it's a frustrating one. It is kind of crazy still, though, that we're sitting here and we're not able to fully be confident that Chris Bryant hits 15 home runs. Really hope that's the big surprise. The Chris Bryant breakout season would be a massive surprise for the Colorado Rockies. My mic just fell down there. Felix says, hey, Paul, I'm curious if you live in the Denver area and what games I plan on attending. I don't live in the Denver area, unfortunately. I am a native. I was born and raised, though. That was where I before I left for college. That's where I was. I will be attending a game coming up next month. Actually, I'll be in town for the Red Series there, as I'm back in town for a wedding. So that'll be fun. Lux Ace, long time everydayer, says, only watched a couple of innings from yesterday's game, but I did like what I saw, mainly from the young guys. In the rally where the Rockies scored a few runs in, they had only actually had one hit. This was, I believe, for the game before. Let's see. But getting as many walks as we did and scoring because of that is great to see. Lux always got a lot to say. So, Lux, always thanks you for chiming in there. I'm going to get to our next ones here. Nicholas says, KB, baby, comeback season on who's going to lead the Rockies. All right, Nicholas, I like the energy. I like the pulse. I like the passion there. Hey, if King Boo, if Chris Bryant contributes, it's going to be a beautiful sight for the Rockies. If Chris Bryant stays healthy and contributes and plays a positive WAR baseball, it will help the Rockies greatly. Timothy says, I think the Rockies will have 6 players with 20-plus home runs. Tolia looks like the leader, and I think 30 is a good number. All right. Okay, I'm going to see here. So 6 players with 20 home runs. Tolia, Doyle, Tovar. Are we going Jones? Are we going McMahon? And are we going Chris Bryant in for those 6? Let me know, Timothy, if you're listening to the pod here. Let me know who the 6 players are, and see if I was close on the guess. And Joel says, I'm stationed out in Pennsylvania these days. I'll let you know how Lawrence looks rocking the Pittsburgh yellow. Well, thanks for that. Thank you for doing what you do, and let us know. I'm a Justin Lawrence guy. I really was. I really thought he was a fun guy to watch. So I'm a big root for the guys too. You know, it's got to be tough going through what they're going through and that experience, even as a pro. Joel also follows up that with I'm hot taking this one and going to guess that Tolia hits 35. Tovar and Doyle launch 30, and K-Boom comes in from the top rope to drop a surprise 27. Love that. I don't necessarily agree, but I love it. I love the enthusiasm. Man, if the Rockies take a step forward and hitting home runs this year, it'll just be more fun to watch. It'll be more entertaining. Baseball is more fun when your team can launch baseballs, at least if you ask me. Folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back in action tomorrow with more Locked On Rockies. Let me know what you thought of today's episode. Let me know what's on your mind in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. And, of course, for your second listen of the day, go check out our friend Sully on Locked On MLB. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Buffs, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, folks, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.